The great chain of being, which is a hierarchical structure, of all matter and life, constructed by medieval Christianity, and said it had been decreed by God. The chain begins with God and descends through angels, humans, animals, and plants, to minerals. The great chain of being is Latin for ladder of being, is a concept derived from Plato, Aristotle in his Historia Animalium, Plotinus and Proclus. Further developed during the Middle Ages, it reached full expression in early modern Neoplatonism. The chain of being links God, angels, humans, animals, plants, and minerals. One particular yet popular chain of being was the Tree of Jesse, which is a depiction in art of the ancestors of Jesus Christ, shown in a branching tree which rises from Jesse of Bethlehem, the father of King David. It is the original use of the family tree as a schematic representation of a genealogy. This depiction of an illustration by Jacques de Besançon, Paris, circa 1485. Showing 43 generations. Below, the birth and childhood of Mary. Here's a 17th century oak carving of the Tree of Jesse from St Andrew's Castle in the Royal Scottish Museum. Another one with the painter related to Geert-Jan tot St-Jans, circa 1500. Also at the Church of Saint-Étienne in Beauvais, France. Jesse Tree Window by Engrand. The makings of the Tree of Jesse originates from a passage in the biblical book of Isaiah, which describes metaphorically the descendants of the Messiah, and is accepted by Christians as referring to Jesus. The various figures depicted in the lineage of Jesus are drawn from those names listed in the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of Luke. King James Version, Isaiah, chapter 11 verse 1. I quote, "And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch shall grow out of his roots." End quote. It would be wise to keep in mind that Jesse is the writer of Psalms and supposed son of King David, whom which either cannot be genetically identified unless their actual names and geographical background was changed, maybe perhaps to glorify one's very distant lineage to the hierarchy, and place it right at the top of the chain of being, all while deliberately excluding the oldest generations and placing them to the bottom of the chain at the level of plants and animals. This dichotomy that was concocted between them as the start of human origins was orchestrated during the medieval Christianity era of the 6th through 10th century AD, and it's still standing strong today. Now, on the other hand, let's see what the phylogenetic tree, also called phylogeny or evolutionary tree. I briefly covered this in my last video. It is a branching diagram or a tree showing the evolutionary relationships among various biological species or other entities based upon similarities and differences in their physical or genetic characteristics. All life on Earth is part of a single phylogenetic tree, indicating common ancestry. A phylogenetic tree based on rRNA genes, citation needed, showing the 3 life domains: bacteria, archaea, and eukaryota. The black branch at the bottom of the phylogenetic tree connects the 3 branches of living organisms to the last universal common ancestor. In the absence of an outgroup, the root is speculative. In a rooted phylogenetic tree, each node with descendants represents the inferred most recent common ancestor of those descendants, and the edge links in some trees may be interpreted as time estimates. Each node is called a taxonomic unit. Internal nodes are generally called hypothetical taxonomic units, as they cannot be directly observed. Trees are useful in fields of biology such as bioinformatics, systematics, and phylogenetics. Unrooted trees illustrate only the relatedness of the leaf nodes and do not require the ancestral root to be known or inferred. Family trees are often presented with the oldest generations at the top of the tree, and the younger generations at the bottom. An ancestry chart, which is a tree showing the ancestors of an individual and not all members of a family, will more closely resemble a tree in shape, being wider at the top than at the bottom. As always, scientific archaeological DNA evidence will resolve any theories of the matter. Starting with the most basal hierarchical ancestor of the human tree, down to its descendants and so on. Let's get started. The phylogenetic tree of Y chromosomal Adam, from the most basal and oldest geographical descent, will be haplogroup A, is the first generation descendants. Possible time of origin roughly 270,000 to 303,000 years ago. These group of original Africans lived in Africa for over 100,000 years before any other lineage was created, which in part all birth from these group of African people. Coalescence age 275,000 split with other lineages. Place of origin, northwest to Central Africa. Direct ancestor. Y chromosomal Adam. Based on the highest frequencies levels in Namibia, Sumkwe San, Nama 60 to 70%. Southern Sudan, Dinka, Shilluk, Nuer 33% to 61.5%. Ethiopia, Beta Israel 41% to 46%. Lived 100,000 years before the second split to a new haplogroup lineage. Haplogroup B is the second generational descendants. Possible time of origin 100,000 years BP. Place of origin, Africa, region unknown. Direct ancestor of haplogroup BT, whose ancestor is haplogroup A2T. Is in northwest to Central Africa. About 150 to 145,000 years ago. The highest frequencies to this ancestor are in Baka 63%. Gabon and Cameroon 72%, Hadzabe Tanzania 52% to 60%, Nuer, South Sudan 50%, Buti DRC 33% 60%. Central Africa 32%. Sumkwe San, Namibia 31%, Khoisan 28%. Shilluk, South Sudan 27%, Burundi Tanzania 25%. Sutu Sawana, South Africa 18%, Zulu, South Africa 17%. Hausa, Sudan 16%, Sukuma, Tanzania 16%, Kunama, Eritrea 15%, Tutsi, Rwanda 15%, Sanda, Tanzania 15%, Southern Africa 13%. Mali 11%, Ethiopia 10%, Shona, Zimbabwe 10%, Kashmir, Iran 8.2%. Bandari, Iran 2.3%, and Hazara, Afghanistan 5.1%. Haplogroup D, are third-generational descendants, sibling of haplogroup E. Possible time of origin 80,700 to 64,700 years ago. Place of origin Asia, East and Central Asia and Southeast Asia. Is a Y chromosome haplogroup. Like its relative distant sibling, haplogroup EM96, DCTS3946 has the YAP plus unique event polymorphism, which defines their parent, haplogroup DE. Haplogroup D, ancestor DE is unique because it is distributed in several geographically distinct clusters. An immediate subclade, haplogroup D is mainly found in East Asia, parts of Central Asia, and the Andaman Islands, but also sporadically in West Africa and West Asia. The other immediate subclade, haplogroup E, is common in Africa, and to a lesser extent the Middle East and Southern Europe. Haplogroup DE who derived from CT, who came from the motherland of Northeast Africa. Descendants of haplogroup D are found high frequencies in the Andamanese people in Tibet with about 46.6% and indigenous Tibetans. Haplogroup E is also the third generational descendants, siblings to haplogroup D. Haplogroup E is one of the two main branches of the older and ancestral haplogroup DE is the other main branch being of haplogroup D. Possible time of origin is 65,200 to 73,000 years BP. Possible place of origin, East Africa, and/or Eurasia. In 2007 archaeologist has determined that haplogroup E may have originated in West Asia, given that haplogroup E is a clade of haplogroup DE with the other major clade, haplogroup D, being exclusively distributed in Asia. The other immediate subclade, of haplogroup E, is mostly common in Africa, and to a lesser extent the Middle East and Southern Europe. Haplogroup E ancestor. DE is found in both Asia and Africa, meaning that not only one, but several siblings of haplogroup D and E are found in Asia and Africa. Haplogroup E, descendants with subclade known as E1B1A1. Can be found widely distributed with high frequencies in West Africa, Central Africa, Southern Africa, and the region of the African Great Lakes. It also occurs at moderate frequencies in North Africa and Middle East. Haplogroup E1B1A1 is especially common among indigenous Africans who speak Niger-Congo languages, and who spread to Southern Africa and East Africa through the Bantu expansion to West Africa of the North American diaspora. Scientist has confirmed that genomes of African Americans living on the North American continent today are 75 to 80% of the Bantu expansion, in which centuries later would eventually lead to genocide, and the most painful periods in African history, the transatlantic slave trade, in which has affected the genetic history of the Bantu peoples. By analyzing the genomes of more than 5,000 African Americans, the scientists have identified the genetic origins of African populations deported as slaves, and confirmed that the Bight of Benin and West Central Africa were the main ports used for the slave trade to North America. They found that nearly 50% of the genome of African Americans is from the ports located in the Bight of Benin. The other major contribution, almost 30%, is from West Central Africa, Gabon, which is the second richest country in Africa, and Angola, in South Africa. Lastly, 13% comes from the former port of Senegambia, the basin of the Senegal and Gambia rivers, and 7% from the Windward Coast, Ivory Coast. So, my African American family, allow me to reacquaint you with our direct Proto-Bantu speaking tribal families of the Maori Berbers. Haplogroup C, third-generational descendants. Possible time of origin: 53,000 years BP. Possible place of origin: East Asia, Southwest Asia, Central Asian or South Asia. Haplogroup C, direct descendants are among the indigenous Australian Aboriginal peoples, some Pacific Islander peoples, and a few of the ethnic groups of the Lesser Sunda Islands of Indonesia. Haplogroup C direct ancestor is from haplogroup CF. CF include most human male lineages in Eurasia, Oceania and Afro-Asiatic Americas. And CF ancestor is haplogroup CT from the motherland of Northeast Africa. Haplogroup G, fourth-generational descendants. Possible time of origin more than 48,500 years before present. Haplogroup G. Descendants are most commonly found among various ethnic groups of the Caucasus, but is also widely distributed at low frequencies among ethnic groups throughout Europe, South Asia, Central Asia, and North Africa, with low frequency in modern populations there, such as the Arabian Peninsula, northern borders region of Saudi Arabia, and China. Anhui modern populations, except Iran, and its western neighbors. Haplogroup G ancestor is Haplogroup GHIJK from. Possible place of origin, South Asia or Southeast Asia. Haplogroup GHIJK ancestor is Haplogroup F, from Southern Asia, and Haplogroup CF, distant ancestor is Haplogroup CT, from Northeast Africa. Haplogroup H, fifth generational descendants. Possible time of origin, 48,500 years to present. Possible place of origin, South, West, or Central Asia. Haplogroup H, descendants are modern-day South Asians, and Romani people. Direct ancestor is Haplogroup HIJK of Western Eurasia. Haplogroup HIJK ancestor is Haplogroup GHIJK, derived from ancestor Haplogroup F, who derived from ancestor Haplogroup CF, whose ancestor derived from CT, out of Northeast Africa. Haplogroup I, is the sixth generational descendants. Possible time of origin, 42,900 years before present. Possible place of origin, Europe. Haplogroup I, has also been found in multiple individuals belonging to the Gravettian culture. The Gravettians expanded westwards from the far corner of Eastern Europe, likely Russia, to Central Europe. Iran is among the Mazandarani and ethnic Persians from Fars. Haplogroup I, ancestor. Possible place of origin is Caucasus Pontic Caspian steppe. Haplogroup I, ancestor is Haplogroup IJ, who derived from Haplogroup IJK, who then derived from ancestor Haplogroup HIJK, then from Haplogroup GHIJK, who derived from ancestor Haplogroup F, who ancestor derived from ancestor Haplogroup CF, whose ancestor derived from CT, which is the lineage of Northeast Africa. Haplogroup J, is also the seventh generational group and sibling to Haplogroup I. Possible time of origin 42,900 years ago before present. Possible place of origin, the Western Asia or Middle East. Haplogroup J among the highest frequencies are Ingush 88.8%, Chechens 56.7%, Velar 38.7%, Hazaras 26.6%, Cretan 35%, Uzbeks 30.4%, Lebanese 30%. Ashkenazi Jews 24%. Haplogroup J, ancestor is Haplogroup IJ, who derived from Haplogroup IJK, who then derived from ancestor Haplogroup HIJK, then from Haplogroup GHIJK, who derived from ancestor Haplogroup F, who ancestor derived from ancestor Haplogroup CF, whose ancestor derived from CT, which is the lineage of Northeast Africa. Haplogroup TM184 is the eighth generational group. Possible time of origin 48,800 to 10,500 years ago. Possible place of origin, Western Asia. The highest frequencies of descendants are Dur, Isaac, Horn of Africa, Antamoro, Madagascar, Lota, Bauri, Urukula, Raju, and Mali, Eastern India. Direct ancestor LT, who derived from ancestor Haplogroup K. And then from there will follow the tree up the chain from the prior ancestor mentioned. TM184 is originated in Western Asia, and possibly spread from, into East Africa, South Asia, Europe, and adjoining regions. Haplogroup T1 may have expanded with the pre-pottery Neolithic B culture PPNB. European farmers EEF. Haplogroup NM2, 3, 1 is ninth generation. Possible time of origin 36,800 to 39,300 years ago. Possible place of origin Northern East Asia. Haplogroup O is also the ninth generational descendants and sibling of Haplogroup N, and is found in various percentages of populations of the Russian Far East, South Asia, Central Asia, Caucasus, Crimea, Ukraine, Iran, Oceania, Madagascar, and the Comoros. Haplogroup N and O are direct ancestors as haplogroup NO1, whose ancestor is haplogroup K2, who came from haplogroup IJK, who then derived from ancestor haplogroup HIJK, then from haplogroup GHIJK, who derived from ancestor haplogroup F, whose ancestor derived from ancestor haplogroup CF, whose ancestor derived from CT, which is the lineage of Northeast Africa. Haplogroup S and haplogroup M both are siblings and are 10th generational descendants. Possible time of origin 32,000 to 40,000 years ago. Haplogroup S and haplogroup M is found among males in the Papua New Guinea highlands. It is also relatively common in some parts of Oceania people, Wallacea people, Melanesia people, and among indigenous Australians. Haplogroup Q and haplogroup R are both siblings of the 11th generational descendants. Highest frequencies for haplogroup Q are Kets, 93.8%. South American Indians, 92%, Turkmens, of Karakalpakstan, 73%. Selkups, 66.4%. Altaians, 63.6%. Tuvans, 62.5%. Chelkans, 60%. Greenlandic Inuit, 54%, Siberian Tatars, 38%. I'm going to stop right here for a moment, to briefly shed some light as to why the African Bantu-speaking peoples were so important. The Africans of the Bantu expansion spoke a Proto-Afroasiatic language. They had 6 individual subdivisions which were operated under 12 regions, which all includes the Berbers of North Africa, Morocco, Algeria, Libya, northern Mali, northern Niger, Burkina Faso, Egypt, Mauritania, Tunisia and the Spanish city of Melilla. The Chadic of Nigeria, Niger, southern Chad, Central Africa Republic of Congo, and Cameroon. The Cushitic of Egypt, Sudan, Horn of Africa and East Africa. The Egyptians, of the Upper Ancient Egypt, and the Ta-Seti Nubians Kingdom. The Semitics, West Asia, Horn of Africa, West Africa and Malta. The Omotics, Ethiopians. So, as I go into the last human groups which are haplogroup Q and R, keep in mind that, the Bantu-speaking West African, Native Americans of the Mali and Olmecs Moors, whom were all black Africans, during the expansion over 1500 years ago, migrated to the Americas as the original founders. Later, during the colonial of the Cowboys era, this is how those Indians looked back then, before they were eventually all exterminated. The relations between the enslaved African women and the Europeans left mulatto remnants. As a result, the following are their descendants. High frequencies in indigenous Zambega peoples, Afro-Amerindians, also present among modern Native Americans in North America. Guatemalan, Bolivian, Chilean, Brazilian, Honduran, Panamanian, Puerto Rican, and Trinidadian. Possible time of origin 17,200 to 31,700 years ago. According to geneticist Spencer Wells, haplogroup K, from which haplogroups P and Q descend, originated in the Middle East, and diversified in Central Asia, then had spread across Eurasia in several expansion waves such as the Great Bantu Expansion. Haplogroup Q and R ancestor is haplogroup P1, whose possible place of origin is Central Asia, Siberia. Haplogroup P1, ancestor is haplogroup P, whose ancestor is from haplogroup K2b, who came from ancestor haplogroup K2, who then came from haplogroup IJK, who then derived from ancestor haplogroup HIJK, then from haplogroup GHIJK, who derived from ancestor haplogroup F, whose ancestor derived from ancestor haplogroup CF, whose ancestor derived from CT, which is the lineage of the motherland of Northeast Africa. And, there it is. My dear human family, this is our factual tree of the great chain of being. Based on the descended patrilineally Y chromosome Adam evolutionary tree. Conclusion. Y chromosomal Adam is estimated to have lived roughly 236,000 years ago in Africa. By examining other bottlenecks, most Eurasian men from populations outside of Africa, are descended from a man who lived in Africa, 69,000 years ago of ancestor, haplogroup CT. Other major bottlenecks occurred about 50,000 to 5,000 years ago, and subsequently the ancestry of most Eurasian men can be traced back to 4 ancestors who lived less than 50,000 years ago, who were descendants of East or Northeast Africa of ancestor haplogroup EM1, 6, 8. One more very important thing to mention, and this is specifically to the non-mixed, West African American population, who are the original Amera Moors. You are actually the ancestor of these said remnants, due to your dominant E1B1A subclade of high frequencies. And for the most part, you are, all collectively, the living ancestor of all remnants after haplogroup E, third generation. With that being said, during the medieval Christianity era, it was justifiable for the Wallacea people to claim victor over all beings, by simply declaring that the existence of mankind started from the remnants after the ancient Greek deluge, that they decreed was from God. All the while excluding, executing, and deeming any rightful subjects of a shamanistic nature as an abomination to God. Although, family, you are now made fully conscious of our human existence, it would be an act of disjustice to express any hate, or use this knowledge as a means to exploit any such divisive superiority amongst the human family. Instead, promote love, raise awareness, kinships, and global coalitions that support truth, freedom, and sovereignty for all, by the content of their virtue. And most of all, a collaboration to push for a declaration over an entire province that is already rightfully yours. You just needed to know who you are to claim it. Until then, may God bless all human families to be the light that rise out of darkness.